This is part two in our Prayer 101 series. And in part one, I pointed out that we have to be taught to pray. We actually have to be taught to pray for two reasons. One, prayer doesn't come naturally to us. And second, by default, we all pray incorrectly. So we need to be taught to pray. And that's what makes this chapter that we're looking at together, Luke 11, so awesome. Because in love, Jesus modeled prayer for us. That was all part one. That leads to a question that I want to give to you, and I would love for you to seriously consider. Besides a model prayer, what do you need if you want to become a prayer warrior? And maybe the term scares you. I know I don't think of myself as a prayer warrior. So let me just kind of give you the description instead of the term, all right? Besides a model prayer, what do you need if you want to become a person who prays quite a bit and prays with faith that God is going to answer many of their prayers? Not all of them, but a good percentage of their prayers. And not only that, but you want to become a person that God trusts with both invitations to pray and influence when you pray. Let me kind of unpack that just a little bit more. Like you want to become a person that God trusts, and so when God wants to work in someone's life, then he would let you become aware of what's going on in that person's life so that then you would join him in prayer. And not only do you get to be part of what God's doing, but you also get to have a front row seat to what God is up to in this world, like in this other person's life, or in this marriage is struggling. So, or someone who's far from Christ, or some other major issue that needs to be addressed, or whatever, some problem. But what would you need besides a model prayer if you want to become the kind of person that God was frequently inviting into what he's doing? And then God is not only inviting you to see it and to have a part in it, but God is actually using your prayers to change what happens, right? God is trusting you with his resources and his power. What would you need besides a model prayer? You need that for sure. If you want to become that kind of a person, someone who prays quite a bit, someone that God trusts quite a bit. And by the way, as I say that, I'm not just asking the question. I actually hope that I'm encouraging and stirring up something that's already within your new heart. I really believe that you want to be a prayer warrior. Forget the term. I really believe that you want to be the kind of person who prays quite a bit and that God trusts a lot. And in fact, if you are a teen or a young adult and you're listening to this video, number one, I'm so glad you're listening to this video. I want to speak to you for just a minute. A lot of times we ask you questions like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Kind of those kinds of questions. Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to study? What do you want to be? And culture's asking you, who do you want to become? Who do you want to be in a relationship with? We ask you all those kinds of questions, and they're noble and they're worthwhile and stuff like that. Has anybody ever asked you, hey, do you want to become a prayer warrior? If not, consider yourself being asked right now. And I want to encourage you. I bet this is what your new heart wants. I really want to encourage you to become that kind of a person, to become that. Whatever else you become, that's awesome. You get a vocation, get some hobbies, be in relationships, those kinds of things. But seriously, you want to be a prayer warrior. You want to be someone that God trusts a lot with invitations and influence, and that someone, therefore, who prays a lot and has the joy of seeing God do amazing things, destiny-changing things through your prayer. Well, let's return to Luke 11, where Jesus is teaching his disciples to pray. This is verse 5. He also said to them, suppose one of you has a friend and goes to him at midnight and says to him, friend, lend me 3 loaves of bread because a friend of mine on a journey has come to me and I don't have anything to offer him. Then he'll answer from the inside and say, don't bother me. The door is already locked. My children and I have gone to bed. I can't get up to give you anything. I tell you, even though he won't get up and give him anything because he is his friend, yet because of his friend's shameless boldness, he will get up and give him as much as he needs. This is a really interesting parable. The host needs bread or else he's going to be shamed for his terrible hospitality. And the friend is able to meet the need, but he's unwilling to do so given the cost, right? Because he's going to, you got to remember, this is probably like a one-room house, and they're all sleeping on one sleeping mat. So if he gets up, he's kick a kid accidentally or whatever, he's going to wake up his kids and everything. So he's like, he could meet the need, but he's not willing to do so because it's costly. But the host refuses to take no for an answer. And Jesus said that this friend will get up and give the host as much bread as the host needs. He's going to meet the need, but not because of friendship, but because of the host's shameless boldness. That's a key word, and we're going to come back to it in a little bit. Now, maybe you got the parable. Maybe it resonates with you. Maybe you have the gift of hospitality, and so the thought of not having something you need is like, right, this is a terror, right? And so you would do whatever it took to get what you needed, that kind of a thing. For many of us, I don't think, because our culture is so different, I don't think this resonates. So let me just try to throw out perhaps a modern day equivalent parable. Suppose one of you has a family member who is in desperate need of medical care. And you've been to the doctor, and the doctor has diagnosed the problem, and the doctor is willing to do the surgery. And so you did the next thing, right? You turned it, right? The doctor turned in the pre-authorization form to the insurance company, but the insurance company has denied it. They're not going to pay. And the doctor's like, I'm sorry, can't do the surgery. Suppose that has happened, right? That's your family member. Well, then I know what you'll do, right? You're going to call the insurance company back, right? You're going to try to get details like, why was this denied? Or is there somebody else I can talk to? Like, can I put your manager on the phone, right? That kind of a thing. And you're going to try to get it worked out that way. And you're going to try to, is there another form? Does the doctor just need like a clarification? Are we missing one of those magic numbers, right? Everything with the insurance companies is all gets coded, right? Are we missing one of the magic numbers? What do I need? And so you're not going to give up. You're not going to take no for an answer. You're going to go at it. And if you get denied it again, then you're going to start having different conversations, right? You're going to let the insurance company know, hey, by the way, I'm reaching out to the Better Business Bureau just to leave like a rating and a formal complaint. Oh, and I'm going to reach out to my state senator because they've got an office that I know they've got caseworkers who sometimes help people when things aren't going the way they're supposed to go, and when companies aren't honoring what's clearly in the contract, which you and I both know this is supposed to be covered. It's in the contract, right? Oh, and I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking about calling the local news company. The parable would continue like this. I tell you, even though the insurance company won't honor the contract due to a sense of obligation, yet because of the public relations nightmare you are creating for them, they will pay the bill in full. Right? That might be a modern day equivalent of what Jesus said on that day. So back to the original parable, when Jesus talks about the friend and the host. Is Jesus saying that the Father in heaven is like the reluctant friend? Or is he saying that the Father is unlike the reluctant friend? Or you could say it this way. Is Jesus comparing or contrasting the Father that we pray to with a friend? That's really, really important, because depending on which you think, is Jesus saying that prayer is like going to this friend, or is Jesus saying that the Father is unlike the friend? Depending on which you think that Jesus is pointing out, it's going to take you down two very different roads. You're going to come to two very different conclusions. I will tell you this: 2 verses later, Jesus contrasts the Father with human fathers. So I think it makes sense to believe that Jesus is not saying that the Father is like this friend who could help you, but if he is, if the point is that they're similar, then well, I guess now we know the mystery ingredient in the formula for prayer. It's persistence, right? If you annoy the bejeebers out of your friend, you can get bread. If you annoy God enough, right? If you persist long enough that he is sick of you coming, then, well, that was the mystery ingredient. You can get your prayers answered. But if the Father is unlike the friend, in that the Father is way, way better than a friend, then what Jesus is saying is something like this. You can get bread out of a friend who's dead set against getting up to give you what you need. How much more can you expect your Father in heaven to give you what you need when you ask him? I think that's the big thing that Jesus wants us to know. Your Father is way better than the friend in the story. And you can get bread out of the friend. How much more can you expect your Father in heaven to give you what you need when you ask him? Because your Father is way, way better than the friend. Well, it doesn't just stop with a parable. And think about this for a minute. A lot of times Jesus gave a parable and then he just left it there, let the people think about it. Once in a while he gave the parable and then he gave like the interpretation so they knew what it meant. In this particular case, Jesus not only gives us the parable, he gives us the next level, which is the application. Like, this is what you're supposed to do with this knowledge. I love it. Verse 9. So I say to you, ask and it'll be given to you, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be open. There it is. Here's the application. He says, so I say to you, boom, ask, seek, knock, right? Ask, seek, knock. And then he explains why, right? Everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks finds that the door gets open for them. So, all right. Let's talk a minute, make sure we're on the same page as far as what does ask, seek, and knock mean. These verbs, ask, seek, knock, in their original language are in the present continuous tense. What that means is this. It implies that asking is not a one and done activity, right? You don't just like, God, I need blah, blah, blah. You spit it out and now you're done and then you just wait for the answer. No, it is ask as in keep asking, or if you're seeking, keep seeking, or if you're knocking, keep knocking until you get what it is you're asking, seeking, or knocking for. It's not a one and done thing. And by the way, that makes so much sense. That is so wise on God's part, because that's what separates out like wishes from what we really, really want. Right? When we have to keep asking and keep at it, that's when we find out, like, do I really, really care about this? Do I really, really want God to do this in this person's life? Do I really need this? Or not? Right? When you have to ask. So that's the first thing. The verbs are in the present continuous tense that implies this is not a one and done, it's a keep it up thing. Second, these verbs might indicate different level or different types of obstacles. We ask because the need can't be met on our own. We seek because the way is unclear, so we don't know what direction to go. Or the obstacle might be the door is locked and closed, right? So in that case, we're knocking because the door is closed and we can't get from where we know what we need to do, but we can't make that door open for us. So these verbs might indicate different types of obstacles. Third, some see an escalation of effort in these verbs, like ask, and if that doesn't get the results you want, well then take it up a level, start seeking. And if that doesn't get the result, well then take that up another notch and start knocking. And you know what, that's very possible. But I would say this, while ask, seek, and knock might indicate an escalation of effort on our part, it could just as easily indicate emphasis through repetition on God's part, right? Like something like this. God's looking at you and me and he says, how many ways can I say this to you so that you get the idea? Ask, seek, knock. What I'm trying to say is don't hesitate to come to me with whatever you need. Whatever the need, whatever the obstacle, come to me with it, right? It could be analogous to, when we say anything, anytime, anywhere, right? Ask, seek, knock. It's like that. Anything, anytime, anywhere. Bring it to me. Could be that. Well, this I know. It was very kind of Jesus to apply the parable for us so that we know what we're supposed to do with it. And he fully connected the dots. I want to go back to Luke 11, verse 8, and show you one more thing that I think is really important and kind of cool. He says, I tell you, even though he won't get up and give him anything because he is his friend, yet because of his friend's shameless boldness, he will get up and give him as much as he needs. That phrase, shameless boldness, in the original language, the Greek, is actually just one word. Old translations often use the word persistence because persistence is implied in this parable. But that word, in the Greek literature of the day, that word actually carried the idea of rudeness of words and actions in trying to get what you want. It was not a good thing to have your name and that word linked together, because it meant that you were probably being pretty rude about the way you were going about getting what you wanted. Some of you have seen this happen in other people. You never do it yourself, but you've seen other people who were pretty rude in getting what they wanted or what they felt they needed. And that's this word. One commentator calls it asking with a not to be deterred attitude. And I think that's really a great translation of this idea. Like, you're asking in a way that you will not be deterred. You will not be stopped. So I think one of the things that's happening in this passage is God is making the case for shameless boldness with at least three thoughts. First is this, that God is our Father, right? God is our Father. Now, let me pull something out here. You've got one of these. Cell phone, right? Mine happens to be in Do Not Disturb right now. I learned that the hard way. When I walk here into the studio to record, I put this in Do Not Disturb. You know how I learned that? Because I've gotten phone calls in the middle of trying to record. Totally messes everything up. Often I have to start all over. Yeah, right. When my phone is in Do Not Disturb, you could call me and I won't know. But the fact that my phone is in Do Not Disturb right now does not mean that there's no way I'm going to be disturbed. There are actually a few exceptions. You can probably guess who they are. My wife Mara is one of the exceptions. Even when my phone is in Do Not Disturb, her calls will come through. Her text messages will come through. My son Jonathan, my daughter Becca, right? My daughter Alyssa. Those are my exceptions. Pastor Joel, he's a great friend, trusted colleague. I love working with him. Not an exception. If he calls me right now, you and I will never know. But that speaks to why you and I can go to God in prayer with shameless boldness. We have access because we are his adopted children. Our ability to receive what we ask is based on our relationship with the one we're asking. It's not based on wording the request just right. That's why you said in the last part, prayer isn't a formula. Like, you got to get the words exactly right if you want to have any chance of God answering. No. Our ability to receive what we ask is based on our relationship with the one that we're asking. Second, not only is God our Father, God is a really good Father. Unlike the friend in the parable who doesn't want to be bothered, God seems to be willing to be bothered by us, doesn't he? And the Father loves to give good gifts to his children. I like what James Edwards said. He said, anyone who treats a friend as the villager treats his friend would sooner or later cease to have a friend. But God can be approached with persistence, perseverance, and even shameless audacity, because God is not offended by honest and urgent prayer. For as the following section establishes, it's God's good pleasure to give good gifts to his children. He is a really, really good Father. And third, a lot of commentators see a dynamic of shame and honor in the parable, right? The host goes to the friend because the host knows he's got to get bread. Otherwise, he's going to be shamed for being a terrible host. Bad hospitality. And so he's out there and he's banging on the door shamelessly to protect his honor, which is an interesting concept, kind of ironic. And that friend inside will get up probably not just to shut him up, but also to protect his own honor, because if word gets out, and everybody's going to now know, because everybody else in the neighborhood can hear the pounding, they're going to know like what kind of a friend he is and stuff. So there's this shame and honor dynamic going on in the parable. And that reminds us, this parable is a reminder that God often acts for the sake of his name rather than the worthiness of the person who's in need. Right? God is willing to act to preserve his honor. It's not an exaggeration to say this. God is more motivated to answer our prayers than we are to pray them. Isn't that incredible? Which leads to one other thing. You may be thinking, but whoa. Jesus said, everyone who asks receives. I've asked and not received. Like my own life is a contradiction of what Jesus said on the day. What about unanswered prayer? Why doesn't Jesus address that? Good question. On the day that Jesus taught the disciples to pray, he doesn't give a list of reasons why people sometimes ask and don't receive. Why they sometimes seek and don't find. Why they sometimes knock and the door remains deadbolted. Instead, you know what he did do? He ruled out the one reason for unanswered prayer that we would fear the most. The one potential reason that, if it were true, would result not just in an occasional unanswered prayer, but would put all of our prayers in jeopardy. He ruled that out in this teaching on that day. So what explanation for unanswered prayer did Jesus rule out? This one. That God is reluctant to answer your prayer. The reason your prayer wasn't answered is not reluctance on God's part. It's not like God's like, nah, I just don't want to. That was ruled out. He is way too good of a father who loves to give good gifts. That's not it. I can't tell you right offhand why he didn't answer your prayer, but I can tell you that wasn't it. We can chat more one-on-one about reasons for unanswered prayer if that would be helpful. By the way, it was a series of unanswered prayers that God used to start that quest that led to me becoming a prayer warrior. Kind of funny. All right, let's begin to wrap this up. I want to leave you with two questions. Question one, what's the primary message of this parable and the accompanying application? What is Jesus showing us? Is he showing us a warning? Like that if you don't persist in your prayers, you won't receive? Is he showing us an escape clause for God? Like God isn't obligated to answer unless you escalate with intensity all the way from not asking to seeking to knocking. Is the primary message a promise that everyone who asks receives? Is it an encouragement? The only thing you have to get right when you pray is to go to the right person. Or is the primary message a father who is way better than a friend, who could help you if he was motivated? Right? Is this about the Father, about a warning, about a promise? What is Jesus showing us? Second question. Do you feel a stirring in your new heart to be a prayer warrior? Like I said earlier, maybe the title scares you, but the description excites you. A person that God trusts with his power, who gets a front row seat to God at work, who prays quite a bit due to what they see, and confidence that God wants to change things through their prayers. If you want to be a prayer warrior, besides a model prayer, what do you need? What's holding you back? We'll pick up in part 3. I look forward to seeing you then.